Hey, folks. We'll get to the podcast in just a second. Just a couple things I got to get out of the way. We're still reeling from the loss of Dana Keys last week. Dana was a DJ, podcaster, and a force of life, light, and love who passed away last week. She was our guest on Season 3, Episode 8. For info on how you can contribute to her memory, please see our link tree. Now, our episode this week is kind of all about donuts. We thought you should hear from an old friend, Pinky Winchester, who would like to serve up some coffee to go with those donuts. Here's Pinky, followed by part 2 of this week's podcast.
COVID caused us to close down on the campus. We couldn't take the chicken sandwich to online sales. We're taking our coffee online, our premium specialty coffee online, because it would have been just heart-wrenching for me to lose Pinky and Red's. Coffee chose me. I didn't choose coffee. It dropped in my lap from one of the students at the college. I believe that Pinky and Red's premium specialty coffee has something for everyone. It's an array of coffee if you just give it a chance and try it.
Once I got to public school, I saw the segregation, and that's what blew my mind. Because I grew up in San Francisco. I have friends from just across the spectrum: black, white, Asian, alien, gay, whatever. I had it all. I've been exposed to it all. So I was very much used to being around other people. But that was also the first time in my life I felt not accepted by my own people.
That was Vandor Hill of Whack Donuts. I'm Jeff, and this is Storied San Francisco. In this podcast, Vandor dives into his story. His grandpa moved to San Francisco from the South and soon met and married Vandor's grandmother. Vandor talks about growing up in a house where big meals were a big deal. He talks at length about his high school years, the troubles he encountered when he switched from private to public high school, and a very rough senior year, when he managed to graduate despite the odds. If you missed part 1, please go back and listen. Here's Vandor.
My grandfather is from Mobile, Alabama.
Okay.
I've been there once when I was like 7 or 9, and never going back.
Yeah, you're like, now I know why he left. Yep.
And as far as I know,
Did you say Mobile?
Yeah, Mobile,
That's
Alabama.
on the water, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe that's all it has going on.
Yeah, so if you remember E-Bomb's World, it was very famous for the leprechaun being seen in a tree. And one of those guys in that clip is actually my cousin.
Nice.
So
That's weird. I was just talking about E-Bomb's World with some friends last night.
Yeah.
Within the last 12 hours. Anyway.
Yeah. So
okay, so
we're dating ourselves, but it's all good.
Sure. Your grandpa's from there.
But he was originally from Mobile. Okay. Met my grandmother out here, and he, like a lot of Southerners, like he had a limited education, But so my grandma basically taught him how to dress, how to got his articulation game on point because she used to work in the school district
here
in San Francisco.
Is she from here?
Yeah.
Born and raised as well? Okay.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember where my great-grandmother's from, because I know she's not originally from California. I want to say she's probably from, like, Ohio or something like that.
Okay, Midwest.
Yeah, so she's more of a Midwest girl.
Yeah. Do you know what brought your grandfather out here? And when did this happen?
Just work, I mean, he was in the South and losing his mind.
Great migration
So
era,
there was more opportunities out here in California.
Right.
And he could literally drive anything.
Yeah.
So
was this like 40s, 50s?
This is like 40s, 50s.
Yeah.
I want to say.
Okay. He wasn't alone in moving from
No.
lesser places in the world.
But he actually has a safety track record for like over 20 years. He never. Wow. So one thing I loved and hated about my grandfather's room was it was the coldest room in the house, and but I would also love the fact that he had cable in his room. But he had a wall that was just adorned with just like awards, and I'm just like, at the time I didn't understand like, what was all that, Grandpa? And he was like, oh, this my awards. And he was like,
He's humble.
He was just really humble. It was just like whatever. And I used to just love hanging out in there looking at his awards. And he used to always laugh. He loved watching like sports on TV. And he had a radio like right next to him playing like the same game.
The play-by-play.
Oh my God! And if you went in there, there was rules. I'd be like, Grandpa, like you're watching the game though. Like, why are you going? It's like, if you're gonna be talking like that, you can get out of my room.
Oh shit!
My grandfather was, like I said, he was like the buffest dude I ever like saw. Like I was like, my grandpa could beat up your grandpa.
Yep.
He wasn't like hunchback. He was a big dude.
Well, that's also kind of like it's a little bit old school. You see it a little bit now, but people who go to the game and have yeah. You just get more, right?
Yeah.
I relate.
You're watching like the commentators like on TV were different than actual like guys calling it.
Totally.
Totally. But yeah, we
Can we go back to their story real fast?
Yeah.
Your grandparents?
Mm-hmm.
So they met out here by accident. Do you know the story of how they met?
Vaguely.
That's part of why you're here.
Yeah. I just know like I think they got introduced to each other at a party. Because like the other thing about my grandparents, and I like looking at their old pictures, like they this is kind of what was that, like Mad Men?
Yeah.
Like
dapper.
That's my grandfather wore a suit all the time, and it was like looking at my grandma, I was like, oh wow, Nana, like look at you, And then like my great grandma, who I thought there's a picture in our old living room, and I was like, who's that, Nana? She was like, well, that's my mom. He's like, but you barely remember her because I was born when my great grandma was still around, but she passed away.
Okay.
Actually, she passed away in her sleep, like while she was holding me.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
So like she used to get these really bad hiccups, and they would always give me to her, and she would kind of like rock me.
Oh, like it soothed
and
her.
And it calmed her down.
Nice.
So like when I would start crying, they would give me to her, and then she would just like rock me to sleep. And then they said like, yeah, like and I tell people that, they're like, oh my God, I was like, no, she was sitting she was like in a way where she couldn't drop me, but she was just like holding me, and then they just said like when they looked up, they were like, oh, she passed away. Mm-hmm. And she fell asleep, but she passed away in her sleep.
Wow.
So, but yeah, they just met at a party, and
maybe mutual friends.
Yeah, two mutual friends.
Okay.
And, I remember she told me like, I basically kind of had to like, teach him how to read and taught him how to dress, like, so I was like, okay. And once that was like done, then like, my grandfather, fast forward to like, 80s, 90s, like anytime he'd go out, it took him 9 hours to get ready. But once my grandfather was ready, it was a sight to behold.
Yeah.
He had a suit. And my favorite thing was like, he'd be like, feather or no feather in his hat. I'd be like, no feather tonight, Grandpa.
Did he ever shop at Siegel's over here?
No, there's a spot out on Ocean View is where he would get Thorn hats.
Okay.
I don't know if Thorn's still there.
Yeah.
But he knew that guy, and so like he was like, "Oh, you're Randy's grandson." Super stern. It's like mean, but not in like mean like what you would normally assume. Like because I used to think my grandfather was mean, but no, he was just old school. Mm-hmm. So and he was a country boy, so it was like
right.
And he used to call me Fletcher, and to this day I still don't understand what that meant. And he used to call my grandma Butch. That was his nickname for my grandma.
Yeah.
And anytime they go, hey Butch, like I'm gonna go start the car, So.
And so where in the city did they end up living?
So we lucked out, man. My great grandma got a house on California and Desidero.
Okay.
So like kind of lower Pac Heights, and then like you're starting to get to the lip of like Fillmore, Geary, which is like literally behind us. Mm-hmm. So like the Viz, like I remember, like the 22, the one California, there was in the 24 Desidero were like the two buses like close to me. So we were one of like I want to say like 3 black families in that neighborhood, and then across the street it was Benoit, and then that was the husband, and then the wife Ming, she had her own little restaurant, and we had this Ethiopian jazz club called Rosales, So it was Rosales, a weird place, and then Ming's, and then like a wannabe kind of like Circuit City, like Good Guys like store.
Right.
And then this like kind of high end like toy store where you're paying like $20 for like like a basic toy.
That was for the rest of the folks in that neighborhood, right?
But honestly, growing up, I never felt alienated. Like, oh, we're the only like black family on here. Everyone got along, black, white, whatever.
That's cool.
And
this is the house you
this is
grew
the house
up in?
this is the house I was really born in. So it was my uncle was there was a floor downstairs. So it was literally like a family could live downstairs, but it was just my uncle. Above him was my grandfather's room, then the living room, kitchen, then my grandma's room and bathroom. They used to sleep in the same room, but the funny thing about my grandparents is like they both said one snored. So they had their own separate rooms. But whenever they would go out, they would, come together. He would take her shopping or whatever, and they go on trips, or if it was their anniversary, So it was funny. Like, it was like, nah, grandpa snores. It's like, yeah, he snores. I got tired of it.
The older I get, I'm like,
And
every
then-
couple has snore stories.
Because there's a picture of them, like, the last time, because she used to, like, stay in the room with them. And I was like, oh, wow, so you guys did used to, like, sleep in the same bed at one point. And he was like, yeah, but I got tired of him snoring. And then vice versa. And then, plus, it was the coldest room in the house. So you go further back, another living room, another bathroom, my room, my mom's room, kitchen, and then our backyard. And then above me was my aunt and her two kids, my two cousins. And then next to them was another family. So I found out, senior year, it was like, oh yeah, I lived in the Victorian flat.
Oh shit.
So yeah, it was my grandma would like, she had a green thumb in the backyard. She used to grow fruit.
Nice.
Our dog was back there, Ricky. We had a cat named Smokey. So he was a weird, interesting cat because he'd go in the backyard and be in the house.
Oh. Is your sister younger than you?
Yeah. And
so she came around later.
Yeah, because I never met my father. I mean, I remember the day my dad like walked out on me. I chased after him. And that was kind of like a family secret. It was like, I was told this one guy in a picture was my dad, but I remember there was a family friend who I just like was glued to, and fast forward to like my senior year, and I was hanging out with my aunt. We used to watch X-Files all the time, and I was like, yo, like, so why is my dad such a taboo topic?
Yeah.
And she was just kind of took a deep breath. She was like, well, baby, do you remember so-and-so? And I was like, yeah. She's like, that's your father.
So you just knew him as,
the family
this
friend.
Guy. Yeah,
but she was like, but that dude in that picture is no, that's not your dad.
How old were you when he left?
2.
2 years old, man. Okay.
So.
But if I may, you had hella family there.
Oh yeah.
And everyone's literally in the same building.
Yeah,
right?
that's why.
Awesome.
That's why like when I would talk to my friends and like they were like, oh, my cousins are in Texas or my cousins are over here. It's like everyone was spread out. I literally had my whole family in one house.
In the same building. Yeah.
And so that's why me and my cousins are more like brother and sister than anything. And people are like, that's just your cousin. I'm like, no, that's my cousin. Like,
are y'all all like kind of around the same age?
So my cousin T, we're exactly 3 months apart.
Oh.
So I was born in March. She was born in June.
Very much the same age.
Her brother, my oldest cousin, Kenya, he was, I want to say, like 8 years older than us.
Okay.
So, yeah, because when I was in high school, by the time we got into high school, or when I was in middle school, he was already in high school. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, when we were in middle school, he was already in high school. And then my sister is through... who's my mom's boyfriend at the time, but he's now my stepdad. So that was my sophomore year.
When she was born?
Yeah, she was born my freshman year, actually. Take that back.
So you're like 13, 14, something like that?
More like 14, 15, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, whatever, how old you are when you're a freshman.
Right.
But it was, yeah, she came through like later, so she's like in her early 20s right now.
She's a youngin' now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I remember changing her diapers, taking her to the park, doing bottles, all that stuff. But that was a dope house. A lot of like family gatherings were easy. We have our family reunions at Coyote Point for our extended family.
Mm-hmm. You already mentioned. Well, you mentioned your peach cobbler, which came down from your grandma, right?
Combination of my grandma and my grandma.
Yeah. What about the meals? What about the stuff before the dessert in that house?
Oh man, Thanksgiving was always dope. Because we had like leftovers for like 2 weeks.
Did your grandpa bring any of his, I don't know, recipes or anything like that from the South?
Cooking hot dogs over the burner stove. Learned that from my grandpa. That's actually how he used to reheat pizza. He just put it in a pan. And
over the flame.
Boom.
Yeah.
He liked, let's see, tripe. I didn't know what tripe was, and I just remember I was chewing it for like 9 hours. Because there'd be times where like he would like watch me or me and my cousin, and he'd be like, "Oh yeah, I gotta feed you guys." But he didn't cook much. He could cook, but he didn't cook much, and it was like let alone cooking for like his grandkids.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, well, y'all eating what I'm eating, And his favorite snack was buttermilk and bread.
Dipping the bread in the buttermilk?
Yeah, but he would do it like cereal style.
I'm not going to knock it. I haven't tried it.
But here's the thing.
I bet it tastes delicious, actually.
Oh, God, it was awful.
No? Okay.
It was horrible. It was like old people food, But I was like so like, enamored by my grandfather. Just everything he did was cool.
Yeah.
And I just remember seeing him do that all the time. Mm-hmm. Like if my grandma wasn't cooking and he kind of wanted something in his stomach, he would do that. And I literally just watch him get some bread, kind of break it down, and just like pour this buttermilk. And I was like, what's buttermilk? And I remember I was by myself one time. And I tried it and I instantly like just yacked it up. I was like, how does Grandpa do this? Like, but I was like, a little young thing.
Yeah.
So my taste buds were still developing, but
Did you say your grandpa's name was Randy?
Yeah.
Or sorry, is?
So
is he still around?
it's Randy Lemmy Lee Hill. So I didn't know which came first, but my mom's name is Kimmy, and I actually got a lot of crap growing up because I never called my mom. I always called my mom by her first name. So when I was like at that phase when you're like saying what you hear and repeating stuff, I was around her girlfriends all the time because she stayed with her homegirls when she had me in the beginning, and that's why I said my grandparents like literally took me because they're like, nah, I didn't have a crib, I was just in an apartment, and so I couldn't say K, so I would call her Emmy, and then so as far as I remember, I was always calling my mom by her first name. Kimmy. And some people thought it was cute. Some people thought it was just disrespectful. I was still my mom. I still loved her.
Kind of none of their business.
Yeah, and it was like, people were like call their grandmas Meemaw, and I'm like, what's that?
Right.
Like,
that's literally one of my names.
But I call my grandma Nana.
Nana, yeah.
And oh God, that every time I remember in first grade, the worst teacher, Miss Cade. She was from the South too, and I remember for some reason she used to ride me and my cousin all the time. And this was back during the time where like teachers could hit you, and not even like mainly because I went to a private school or Catholic school or whatever. But like I got I could show you a welt that I still have to this day from a metal ruler.
Oh, shit.
So I remember she was like, "What do you call your grandma?" And she totally had like the other teachers like circled me. She's like, "Go ahead, what do you call your grandma?" And I was like, "Nana." She was like, "Say it again. Like, what do you call your grandma?" And it was like total like they were just laughing at me.
What the hell?
The only teachers that spoke up for me was Miss Brown and Mr. Rivers. Those were like my two favorite teachers, and everyone was kind of scared of Miss Brown, and then they knew I think Miss Cade was actually kind of intimidated by her a little bit. And I was like, in my mind, we always wanted to see those two throw down, Because she was like, you don't talk to, she's like, don't treat that boy like that. Like, what are you doing? And then Mr. Rivers came in, and he was like, "Yeah, what are you guys doing? Like, you're and it's just like, oh."
Can we go back to food for a second?
Yeah.
Because you're born and raised, we were talking about meals in the home. What about meals outside of the home?
If we did, it was a rare occasion, like Mother's Day, like Sizzler.
Oh shit.
What else?
Any like, I mean, they could still exist, but like any like San Francisco places.
So Brother-in-Law's Barbecue.
Oh, on DeViz. I got to go there once. I lived in that hood, and man.
I mean, I wish you went to it back in the day, though. It was like, by then it was like super watered down, and like, because the thing too about a lot of businesses growing up, we knew everyone. Mm-hmm. So like the cheesesteak place also that's on DeViz, I'm the reason why they do the double. So I would go there, and I could eat an adult like size one, and so my mom knew one of the cooks at the time, and he was like, "I'm just gonna give your son double," and then they made that on the menu. So it's like I'm the inspiration for that.
Nice.
There was Two Jacks on Fillmore Haight. Mm-hmm. It never looked like it's open.
Right.
But my grandfather knew the dude, and I just come to find out my grandfather knew a lot of people. We used to get our fruit. We were old school. Like, we had a ice chest in the basement.
Oh yeah.
And a refrigerator upstairs, and another ice chest in the hallway. And so my grandparents would shop maybe like once a month, or once every or 2 months, because they would buy
just freeze everything.
Yeah, they were, and I was like, so yeah. And then buying fruit, like we used to go to the Watermelon Man. So there was a Safeway like in the Fillmore, but we would go like to this other spot called Foodland. Mm-hmm. And it was mostly like Asian like owned and ran. Mm-hmm. But like the synergy with everyone, was cool. It was like the brothers was like, "Hey man, come over here, man, hook me up." And a lot of my people like that spot too, because you can cash your check there.
Nice.
And it was like food was still as good as Safeway. I used to always like ask my grandma, "Oh, are we going to Safeway?" She was like, "You got Safeway money?"
Safeway can be expensive.
And
man.
So we go there.
The one on Geary and Webster. Yeah.
And there was it's basically housing now, but a lot of the little housing projects that are over there, there was an actual it was a place called Foodland.
Oh.
And then it got called Golden Lane. It was bought by another company and it called Golden Lane. But it was one of those places where you're growing up, it's like, oh no, that's Foodland forever. It's like, you're gonna call it that. Most of the time we ate at home. Yeah. It was unless it was a special occasion like a birthday, Mother's Day, then we would go out.
Let's talk about your teen years. 90s, right?
Yeah, 90s. Ugh. The awkward years. So once I got into high school, I feel like middle school was like the formative years of just like, who am I? What am I about? Discovering girls and all that stuff. And I had that wish. I was like, oh man, I wish all my middle school friends were like, we were all going to the same high school. But that's when we learned where we were going. So like, I want to say the majority of the boys, we ended up at Archbishop Reardon. If you weren't in that clique, then you were at SI or Sacred Heart. And then if you were going the public school route, you either at Lowell, Soda,
Galileo.
Oh, Gal came. I don't know why I got into Gal like later in life. So.
Oh, okay.
But yeah,
Washington.
Yeah. But I wanted to go to School of the Arts because the girl I had a crush on at the time. Well, my girlfriend at the time,
yeah,
she was going there, and I wanted to go there. My mom was like, no. So that's when I stopped drawing.
Oh.
So I used to, I've been since how everyone's getting back into stuff. I've been trying to get back into picking up a pencil. I used to do graph back in the day and trying to get back into that. But my teenage years, I had a decent hand style. I wasn't really tagging on stuff like most of the other cats were, but I had my little black book, working on my hand style. My best friend Matthew, we were actually born the same month, same day, same hospital, same year. He broadened my scope on a lot of stuff. So he knew more hip hop music than I did. White Cat, and it was like, I'm like, dude, either you know stuff or you don't.
Right.
So he really got me back into Beastie Boys because I think Hello Nasty came out when I was in high school. got me into Green Day, Metallica. He was the first to kind of turn me on to Dirty South rap, but no one knew about it yet.
Right.
So Outkast was still Outkast, but they weren't what they were until they blew up, you know?
Right.
So I owe a lot of that to him. And I went through this kind of like weird grunge phase because like I didn't know what I was into yet, you know? And that's when I got into breaking. And then once I got heavier into breaking, that's when I started like, okay, now I rediscovered Wu-Tang, you know, Das Effects and everyone. Yeah, high school was interesting times. Like my best year academically was my sophomore year. So I went from Reardon, transferred to Galileo. What was frustrating was the fact that I'm not a dumb kid. I know that, but my credits got all mixed up, so they didn't know where to put me.
Oh, because of the transfer.
Yeah,
It's like
so I was in band. I was like in like these like higher level science classes. Science was like my subject, and then I had to take a foreign language.
What'd you play in band?
Trombone.
Nice.
So I was really into, you know, James Brown. So I was all like, oh yeah. When I got to Galileo, though, like it was like, if you've seen Lean on Me, it's like the beginning of Lean on Me. Like it's super violent when it's like present day, you know, and the school's all messed up,
right.
And one girl gets attacked, and I was like, that's public school.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I gotta wash my clothes more because you know you used to wear like it was like free dress, you know. We called it like when you're in Catholic school. And I remember my first day. I remember my cousin. He was like, he went to wash. My mom went to Gal. My uncle went to Washington. So it was kind of like in the family. And he was like, oh, you know, just you're in public school now, cuz so you gotta kind of you know carry yourself. And he knew I could carry myself, but I saw people cutting, you know, like smoking up, and I'm just like, my first day in my first math class, I'm like, why am I doing fractions? I know how to do fractions,
right?
You know, and I was just noticing like, this is stuff I did just like, you know, a few years ago. I was in middle school,
right?
And I kept talking to the guidance counselor at the time, and she was like, well, this is like, you know, the blah blah blah, and I'm all like, yeah, but these are easy classes.
Right.
So when I got my first report card, I had like a 3.9.
Right.
I damn near had a 4.0.
Yeah.
And like I remember my mom crying, and you know, I just kind of stood there like whatever, and she was like, oh my God, you almost got a 4.0. Like the thing is, everyone knows I was smart in my family, but I was just like, that was the first time in my life I really felt like no one was listening to me. Because I was like bugging a guidance counselor like every day, and it was very much Asian predominantly at that school. And once I got to public school, I saw the segregation, and that's what blew my mind. Because I grew up in San Francisco. I have friends from just across the spectrum. Yeah, black, white, Asian, alien, you know, gay, whatever. I had it all. I've been exposed to it all. So I was very much used to being around other people, but that was also the first time in my life I felt not accepted by my own people. So like lunchtime really was like, you know, Latinos were over here, black people over here, white kids over here. Everything was like, that blew my mind. And so I hung out with the Chinese kids when I first got to Gal. Okay. But I didn't really talk to anyone. I was just like, I would have my lunch, like, hey, is it cool if I sit here? And they'd just be like, whatever. And then I felt like Antonio Banderas in like, you know, 13th Warrior. I just started picking up, you know, the tongue, and I was like, oh shit, I understand what they're saying. Right. And so,
was dancing already big for you?
I was doing it, but I didn't know anyone. Okay. So I kind of kept it to myself. Right. And then once I want to say like halfway through my sophomore year, when I finally started really making friends, and then they're like, oh yeah, you know, I heard Vandor breaks, and they asked me to like dance at the Welcome Back Assembly, and they were like, once everyone saw me like dance, it was like now everyone wanted to be my friends. Girls want to start talking to me, and I was like, oh wow. And my cousin was going to ICA, and I was like an all girls school, and then like they're like, oh man, you got prom dates, like you got dates like for the rest of high school, and I was like, oh, okay, kind of feeling myself, but then I also struggled a lot with the principal, because I remember I joined the BSU, which was the Black Student Union, and I remember she came in one time, and then she was like, "Oh, just want to let you know, like all the black students here aren't performing, well academically, So think about that." And it just left. And I just remember like everyone just kind of put their head down. And that was the first time I got mad. I was just like, F this.
Yeah.
And the bell rang, and I was late to class, but I was like, excuse me, Principal Chan, like, what did you mean? Like,
we talk.
And she was like, well, the numbers don't lie. And I'm like, and I was like, F your numbers. Like, you're putting me in that category. It's like, I said, that's not the best way to like, instill morale. It's like,
right.
And then I said, you're kind of part of that, problem too, if that is the issue.
Right.
And they were like, you're getting to this, I'm getting whatever, and then they sent me home. And I was just like, I don't like your tone. And I was like, well, I don't like your tone. I said, like, I've been like begging to get in like harder classes, but I keep being told the same thing. It's like, those classes are full, but I'm looking at my Asian counterparts, and they're getting the hookup.
Right.
And like I said, it was very hard for me to like just like swallow that, because I'm like, we should all be eligible for all these scholarships. They get giving me like scholarships. Oh, you're black and you have a high school job. It was the Burger King scholarship, and it was like $150 versus my other homie who was Asian. He got this like almost full ride to Berkeley, and so there was I got exposed to a lot of like that kind of like weird segregation on just across the board, on an academic level, and yeah, it took me out.
Two things kind of come to mind for me. One, those people, and we can't really give them time of day, but like people who don't believe that there's structural systemic racism. And then the other part of it is people, some of them live here too, but like how San Francisco has this image of like a super liberal, super diverse. It's like, when the rubber hits the road, there's problems.
Yeah, and
big problems here.
I'm still proud of myself. That's probably one of my favorite like moments, in high school, was standing up to
her. Absolutely.
And then I don't know what happened, man. Junior year, I struggled it like I did. Freshman year was a hard year too. Being that my sister was born, my mom and stepdad their relationship was really strained, and then we finally, because I was living in the East Bay for a time because my mom and grandma got into a really big fight, and parents always go, "You're coming with me," and I'm like, well, not as mad at you, not me. Right. But I remember it was serious because my grandma came in and like with empty boxes and just like, don't look at me.
Dang.
And I was like, Nana, what did I do? And I remember I told her that, and she was like, I didn't say that. And I was like, Nana, you hurt me so bad when you came in and just threw the boxes at me and was like, don't look at me. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, I didn't even do anything. She was like, and she apologized, but yeah. Junior year came around, and oh man, I just couldn't. I wasn't performing academic. I was struggling. That was like my worst. That was worse than my freshman year, actually. Mm-hmm. I don't know like what was happening. It was just like, I was working at the Exploratorium at this time, so I had a high school job.
Back when they were at Palace
still back,
Finance.
yeah. That's the real Exploratorium.
Thank you.
I can say that I was a lifer, so
yeah.
I worked there from like '96 to 2003.
Although the new one, it is kind of cool how you can like go underwater.
Yeah,
I'll say that. Anyway.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know what happened. And then
were you distracted, maybe?
I guess so, because I had taken up Japanese because you had to. Now that I was in public school, you had to learn a foreign language, and I was into anime and manga and all that. But yeah, that year I struggled, and so I was falling off in my Japanese class. Like it's like I barely got through my junior year. I like went from like a 3.9 the previous year to like I barely got like a 2.5.
Wow.
And I was just like, what's going on? But yeah, I think there was a lot kind of happening at home. And just, I don't know, everything just didn't make sense to me that year academically.
Yeah.
And then senior year is where the drama started happening, like just across the board. So I was able to recover. I felt good. And then they're like, oh, you're half credit short. I'm like,
That's my fucking recurring nightmare,
I'm
by
like,
the way.
what do you mean I'm half credit short? And you're gonna wait till like my senior year? I've been here almost 3 years, and now I'm like half credit short. And so they were like, well, even if you go to night school, I was like, well, I go to night school, and they're like, no, that's still not gonna help. And like, mind you, like I'm ahead with the mentorship, internship. I worked I was at UC Berkeley. I mean, not UC Berkeley, USF. I did the donut thing. I'm like, getting more hours at work, and then that happened. And then I remember at one point, my homeboy Corwin, I met him at Exploratorium. He was this photographer dude, and specifically like he was looking for like people of color, and he was like my older brother, man. Like, but I didn't know he was like he had demons. And I remember when I first met him, I was like, dude, you're a dick. And he was like, yeah, that's what people always think about, but he taught me like old school, like, photography, so I was like printing stuff on like tin cans. I was doing like the Red Room stuff. So like he gave me like, and we hit it off. And my boss was like, you should keep in contact with him because he's always talking about you. And I'm like, really? He doesn't seem like the type.
He likes me.
Yeah. And we hung out outside of work. And then I remember is that Yerba Buena? Yeah, so Yerba Buena, like when all that was still kind of new, they were hosting this like Black Excellence like seminar thing, and he wanted me to be his like right hand, and he was showing me like, we're gonna have this over here, we're gonna have this over here, and I was like, dope. And he was like, it's this Saturday, can you do it? And I was like, yeah. And I remember asking my boss, like, is it cool if I get the time off? She was like, yeah, you're good. And I don't know why, for some reason, like I didn't know how to get there, or I was supposed to get a ride, and no one could give me a ride. And so when I finally said, F it, I'm gonna figure it out, I like got there, I was halfway there, and I was like, dude, I'm like stupid late. This is like pre-cell phone, because my mom got me a cell phone at some point, but I was like, it's kind of like when she tried to give me a pager growing up. I was like, I don't want a pager. What do I need this for? I'm at school, you know where I'm at.
Right.
And I just kind of was like, I can't even face him. I'm like, I'm sorry. And so I missed it. And I was mad at my family. I was like, you guys can give me a ride? Like, it was like downtown. It was like, whatever. So I remember I was at work, and my boss, Evan, was like, hey man, mornings, we have our morning meeting, and then we hit the floor. And he was like, Vandor, let me talk to you. We went outside around the palace, and we were working on the explainer reunion. So all the explainers that have been like ever an explainer, that was coming up. And I was like, oh, you got something funny you want to tell me? And he was like, I don't know how to tell you this, bro, but Corwin like, killed himself.
Oh, Jesus.
And I was just like, and it was like he said it. I heard what he said, but I was just like, oh. But I literally, and I think he tried calling me, or I tried calling him, but it just never went through. And because that's how ashamed I was. I was so ashamed. I was like, I can't even talk to him,
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, man. They found him in his apartment, and I was just like, yo. So I remember I did have a cell phone. I only used it like once in a blue moon, and he was telling me more, and I was just like, okay. I'm like starting to process it, and I remember I called my mom, and she was like, what's up? And I was like, because he told me like they were having like a his like wake / funeral the same night, the same day he told me.
Shit.
And I was just like, hey, I'm gonna be home late tonight. I just found out one of my friends, and I couldn't even say it, and I just like broke down. And she was like, what's wrong? And I just dropped the phone, and like my boss Evan was like trying to console me, and I was just like, I just saw him last week. I said like, I think I went to like, it was my fault. And I started saying that. He was like, dude, no, it wasn't your fault. And I was like, no, I was supposed to be there for him, and I wasn't. And I had like suicidal thoughts like way back in the day too, and it just destroyed me. And it was at the Great American Hall, and I saw his, who I thought at the time was his sister, but it was like his play sister. But it was like, you know, I was just like, yeah, that destroyed me.
Yeah.
So,
And this is you're still in high school?
This is senior year.
Senior year.
So I have the fact that I'm not graduating on stage potentially. Then that happened when my friend committed suicide, and then found out we're losing our house out of nowhere. Like, oh, we're losing the house. I'm like, wait, what? What's going on? And so it turns out my great grandma. I mean, she did get that house, but you know how it was back in the day. It was like my grandma took care of her sick mom. Mm-hmm. And my grandma had like 2 brothers, and I met one, but it's like when you meet someone and like I just instantly didn't like them.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, you're saying you're my family, but I don't know you, dude. You know, so. But I remember apparently my grandfather didn't like her brothers too. You know, and I guess my grandma was still borrowing money for them for whatever reason, and my grandfather didn't like that. You know, old school. You know, that's my wife. You know,
He didn't like that Butch was doing.
and they would like pop up every now and then, and he would like check them, like, "Hey, that's my wife. I'm taking care of her. You know, get out of here." Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So, I guess it reached the point where when the brother came back out and started talking to my grandma, he was like, "Here, I'll help you." Then the other brother was like, "Well, we can get money if we sell this house." So there was that.
Yeah.
And I remember my cousin tried like setting me up with one of her homegirls for prom. I'm like, I don't even know if I'm going to prom.
Right.
Because you know, that was 2 proms. And I'm like,
Not feeling
it. And when I look back too, I was like, well, that wasn't even the girl like I wanted to go with. Like, I didn't think she was cute at all. Well, I made her mad because like, oh, you look cute. Because like we were supposed to hang out, but I was like, dude, like I don't really want to do anything right now. The school knew like I was like just losing it.
Yeah.
I mean, we went out for lunch because we had off campus, and I'm like, I kind of was like, I don't want to go to prom with you. Sorry.
Oh shit.
You know, but I had convinced my homie earlier to go with my cousin because he was a straight up dude, and I was like, well, I felt bad if he takes my cousin and I'm not there. So that's the only reason why I went, because I had asked him and he was down. And but yeah, that was, I missed out on like all the senior stuff like cut day and whatever, because I was basically one of my teachers from junior year was like, I'll take him under my wing, you know, you just have to write a book report for like the next like 2 months.
Oh shit.
So that was like almost like 20 book reports I had to write.
Oh my god.
And I mean, it got to a point where like one of my my homies, there was a junior, Shaker, cool ass dude. I think I was like struggling. I got up to about like 18, and he did like the last 2 for me.
Man, I mean, just hearing those words, book report, I'm like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
Just doing one.
And so yeah, like I sacrificed most of my like senior year. You know, me and my homegirl were supposed to go with each other if we didn't have dates.
Right.
And
like
then,
a pact.
And then she broke that promise because basically the guy that she wanted to go with kind of broke her heart a little bit. Mm-hmm. And then she didn't want to go. But she still went. Like, we still ended up going. We just weren't with each other. And then I had another homegirl who was pregnant at the time with her second kid.
Dang.
And he was like, ooh, like, you know, you should see her dress, bro. And I'm like, dude, she's got 2 different baby daddies.
Yeah.
And she's more like my homegirl, mm-hmm. and she's pregnant. No.
Right.
And so I still ended up going to prom, you know. It was a blast. And I managed to get all my book reports done. I remember my teacher was even like, don't bite off more than you can chew next time. I'm like, I was literally the last senior that they signed off. So
you made it.
I just by a hair.
Yeah.
But so I didn't get a proper cap and gown. So the guy that was selling the cap and gown, I had to buy it the day of my graduation. And I'm like about almost 6 feet.
Yeah.
But it was for someone that was like 5'8". So like I just wore this, like I had like my cargo pants and my shell toes and like a nice top.
Like hella high water?
Yeah, I was flooding, bro. And my stepdad was there to see me graduate, and I had to borrow money from him to get. And I was like, I had already like paid for most of it, and he was like, well, this is all I got left. And dude was like totally like night and day. Like he was nice when he was doing like the senior rings and our cap and gown orders initially, and then he was just a total prick day of my graduation. And if my stepdad had known the full 411, he probably would have knocked him out. And I was just like, I was just like, dude, I'm just trying to walk stage, man. I've gone through all this and
trying to be just normal, right?
Yeah.
Just go through the motions.
So that was actually the second. Yeah, it was like going back to my sophomore year. There was also a friend of mine. Oh no, there you go. Junior year, one of my homegirls in my science class, she was actually in a car accident. So I think that was the first time I had to deal with like that. So, and it sucked. I literally saw her that Friday, and then came to school Monday, and they were like, yeah, she was. So I had this dislike for RAV4s for a minute, because she wasn't sitting in the seat, she was in the back.
Yeah.
And like
those old small boxy RAV4s.
Yeah. And like whoever was driving kind of fell asleep, and she was thrown from the car, and it was just like,
jeez. Well, we're gonna have to wrap just because we're running long.
Yeah.
But I think we can end on maybe a high note. It's a question. Our theme on the show this season is we're still here. I mean, you're obviously still here in a big way, I would say. What does it mean to you to still be in San Francisco?
I mean, considering all the changes, everything that I've gone through, I'm still thriving. It's not easy, but it's just like I couldn't see myself anywhere else, So I definitely feel support from, people. I'm meeting new people. But yeah, it's just, I'm a native, man, and it's like I'm trying my best to fight to live in my own city.
That was Vandor Hill. On the next episode of Storied San Francisco, we'll pick back up on our City Gardens series with a visit to Garden for the Environment. Episode 45 drops next Tuesday wherever you listen to podcasts. Music for the podcast was produced, performed, and curated by Otis McDonald. Original photography is by Michelle Kilfeather. Aaron Lim of Bitch Talk Podcast is our contributing producer. And the show is produced and hosted by me, Jeff Hunt. Now in our 4th season, we have more than 190 episodes available on our website, storiedsf.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you can, please rate and review our show so we can reach even more folks. We love email. Drop us a line at storiedsf@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Stay strong, stay healthy, and we'll see you next time on Storied San Francisco.
This podcast is a proud member of the BFF.FM podcast network. Learn more at podcast.bff.fm.
BFF.FM, best frequencies forever.